As usual, chronicling my unexplained experiences takes a lot of text, so settle in. The reason I call this house the most unhaunted is because I never felt that there was an actual entity that existed there with us, but the things that happened were just so bizarre I can't explain or ever forget them. After my family moved out of a strange, maybe sorta haunted house, see post Old Weird Childhood Street, we moved into a more modern, two-family rental on the other side of town. Unlike the previous place, there were no secret rooms left over from the Underground Railroad, no mentally unstable neighbors, no unsettling history to speak of. But still, my sisters and I experienced some weird shit anyway. When we first moved in, the basement was unfinished. All that was down there was the furnace and water heater, etc., plus the washer and dryer. There was my parents' bedroom on one side of the ground floor, kitchen, bathroom, and living room in the middle, and a big bedroom on the other side that was shared by myself, younger sister, and much younger sister. I think the first time we got wheeled out was the first time my littlest sister sleepwalked. I had shared rooms with both of them at different times in our previous house, and neither had ever sleepwalked before. This night, middle sister and I are up talking. Little sister has been asleep for some time now. But she suddenly sits up and looks at us, hops out of bed, and crawls underneath. Creeped out, we ask what she's doing, and she backs out from under the bed holding a softball. I can't remember if her eyes were open or not, but we both understood she was asleep. She faces us, grins, and runs out of the room. While we're still looking at each other confused, little sister runs back in, gets back into bed, looks at us and giggles, "I hid it." As far as I remember, she laid down and went right back out and remembered nothing. I don't propose this was anything paranormal, just one of the odd things that took place. I never saw her sleepwalk or sleep talk before or after that night. Middle sister was another story. Same in that I never saw her sleepwalk before we lived in this house, but different in that with her it happened quite a few times. It started out with common enough stuff. Talking intelligibly while she was dreaming, getting up from one couch and walking to another while she was still sleeping. I even saw her fold a couple shirts that were laying on the couch once, fully asleep, before she moved the pile of folded shirts over to lay down where they were. It was entertaining. A couple times it was just freaking awful and scary though. One night in particular, our little sister slept in my parents' room so my cousin could have her bed while she spent the weekend. So middle sister's bed was against the back wall longways, facing a wall with a full-length mirror at the end of her bed. Cousin and I are in twin beds set parallel to each other, both facing the side of middle sister's bed. Middle sister is asleep first as usual, laying on her side with her back to us. While cousin and I are chatting in bed, middle sister flips onto her back and starts talking. Cousin is freaked out because it's totally unintelligible babbling, and she's not seen this before. I sure have, so I assure her it's normal for middle sister to babble in her sleep now. Middle sister then sits right up, so quickly it startled both of us, then turns just her head to face us directly. Eyes still closed, just facing us and saying nothing. I had to admit to cousin that this I hadn't seen before. She turns her face back forward, facing the mirror, eyes still closed, and brings her hands up to her shoulders, arms crossed. That looked really freaky. She then pulls her knees up to her chest, puts her arms around them, and falls back and onto her side, so is now in the fetal position, facing us again. She straightens her legs out and pulls them back up a couple of times, until she just completely stops and sleeps normally for the rest of the night. Cousin is absolutely terrified, jumps into my bed and stays there to sleep that night. I'm completely stunned, and I'm not sure how much actual sleep I got that night. I don't think I ever saw her walk or talk in her sleep again. I should really ask her husband if she still does anything like that as an adult. The bedroom the three of us shared here had a closet in the corner. Average size, single door, maybe 1 to 2 feet deep. It was really just some of our clothes on the bar, some items on the top shelf, and maybe a couple boxes on the floor. I don't remember which sister it was, but one of them said she once thought she saw a kid in there. I don't remember any details about that. I didn't really think about it much until I was alone in there one day and heard scratching inside the door. There wasn't anyone or anything in there, so it made me uncomfortable when I couldn't find the source of the noise. I remember telling whichever sister it was that I saw why she thought she sensed something in there. It wasn't super disturbing or anything though, and I forgot about it. A while after that, months, maybe more than a year even, we had a couple friends over one afternoon while my parents weren't home. It was a perfectly fine visit until we all heard something move around in the closet while it was closed. We had a cat, but she wasn't around. She didn't really come in our room if we had anyone in there anyway. We laughed it off, but then it got kinda noisy. Like freaky enough that we all ran out of the room and wondered if we needed to get out of the house. We calmed down after a bit and decided there really was no way any person got in there without us knowing, but we stayed out of the room until my mom got home and opened the door and showed us there was nothing there. I don't know what it was, but 4 of us heard it. I can't elaborate on this because it was something little sister told me years later, but she says that one night she walked out of our bedroom, where she'd have to walk through the living room, past a computer desk and a love seat, and then through the foyer to get to the bathroom. I don't know any details about what she saw in the dark sitting on the computer chair, except that a girl was in that chair and little sister either went right back into the bedroom and shut the door, or ran into my parents' room for the night. When she told me about it, as adults by then, I got a very disturbing image in my head, can't remember why exactly. I'll have to ask her about that one again. After the first year or two we lived here, Dad helped middle sister move her room down to the now partially finished basement. A very common occurrence after that was the presence of what we came to call Casey, our ghost cat. We had 2 cats, and one liked to sleep in our room with either little sister or myself, so we got used to the noise and feeling of him jump into one of our beds at night. Once in a while, we'd hear the tiny jingle of the collar bell, followed by the pressure of the cat landing on and walking on the mattress to curl behind our legs. But we'd go to pet him and he wasn't there. The first couple times this scared the crap out of me. After a little while I got braver and got up to look around, only to find both cats asleep in the living room. Within a year or so we just named it, said hello to it, just didn't get any bad vibe about it at all. Good thing we're cat lovers, I guess, smiley face. One thing that sticks with me to this day was a really weird dream I had one night, that I'm not sure I really woke up from when I got out of bed after realizing I was dreaming. Basically I was totally asleep, and when I woke up, I thought, I opened my eyes facing my dresser. I could see my whole room, the moonlight lighting it all dimly, and noticed shadows moving across the walls. Common sense told me a car was coming up the road outside the window, casting shadows across the room. When I focused my eyes, I saw carousel horses moving up and down and around the room. This wasn't sleep paralysis, I wasn't stuck or unable to move. I was totally weirded out, but I decided that even though my eyes were open and I was able to see my room with half my brain, the other half was sleeping, and dreaming about carousel horses, I guess. So I close my eyes and shake my head all out, rub my eyes and look again, and the room is back to normal. Just to make sure I had shaken the dream all the way off, I picked up my yellow plastic cup of water that I always kept on my nightstand to take a drink. When I did, it tasted really weird. Like super sweet, like flat Sprite. I thought maybe one of my sisters pranked me and put sugar in my water before I fell asleep or something. That wouldn't really have worked since I was always the last one asleep, but whatever. I took it to the kitchen, rinsed out my cup and refilled it. I took a sip right away to get that weird taste out of my mouth, and it was still sweet. So I rinsed it out again, really good this time, and tried again. Still tasted like sugar water. I gave up and put the cup in the sink. The next morning I woke up thinking that I dreamed the entire thing, never woke up or got out of bed or actually drank any water. But my yellow cup wasn't there on my nightstand anymore, and I found it in the sink. I don't know what actually happened. The last thing I can't explain was after I also moved down into a room in the now fully sectioned basement. I was alone in my room one night, reading, or studying, or some quiet activity. It was pretty late, and I assumed that, as usual, I was the last one awake in the house. My bedroom was now underneath my parents' room, at the bottom of the stairs, and at the top of the stairs was the kitchen. While I was reading and it was all late night quiet in the house, I hear taking upstairs. First thought was a TV, but none were on in the house. After listening a few seconds, I recognized the voices as my mom talking with my middle sister, who should have been asleep in the other bedroom in the basement. I was surprised they were speaking in regular daytime voices, not hushed like you would normally speak when you know everyone is sleeping. I listened for a few minutes, starting to think it must be something important if they're discussing it at normal volume in the middle of the night. It was loud enough I could make out most of the words though, and it was some random unimportant thing they were talking about. So I went up to let them know they were talking loud enough for me to hear them downstairs, so they're probably going to wake up dad and little sister if they don't quiet down. As you've probably guessed already, no one was in the kitchen. Parents were asleep in their room and both sisters asleep in their own beds as well. So I went back to reading and after a while shut my light and went to bed. I was definitely fully awake when I heard them, so I don't know what it was. It felt like I had caught a snippet of a moment that had already happened during the day and was repeating itself at the wrong time. So weird. A few years later, around 17-18 years old, I started having more and more trouble sleeping in that room, but it was due to night terrors and sleep paralysis that I think came with an anxiety disorder I didn't know how to handle at that age. The next year when I moved in with my now husband, that all stopped pretty quickly. It was the house after that where I faced the most unexplainable phenomena. If you like this channel, please subscribe, like, comment and share. Thanks you very much.